from Caitanya Caritamrita. We're going to read text 12, then 13, 14 and 15, but we'll recite text 12. Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya
Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya
Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya
Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya
Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya
Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya
Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya
Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya
Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya
Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya
Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya
Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya
Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya
Nija Chinta Shakti Mali Hana Skandahaya Sakala Sakara Se Skanda Mul Ashraya
Nija, his own, Achintya, inconceivable, Shakti, by potency, Mali, gardener, Hana, becoming, Skanda, trunk, Haya, became, Sakala, all, Shakara, of other branches, say that, Skanda, trunk, Mula Ashraya, original support. By his inconceivable powers, the Lord became the gardener, the trunk and the branches simultaneously. This is continuing the discussion about the tree. What's it called? Doesn't have a title. The tree of devotional service. Now we're going to hear about the support of the tree. Paramananda Puri Ara Keshava Bharati Brahmanda Puri Ara Brahmanda Bharati Vishnu Puri Keshava Puri Puri Krishnananda Shrina Shringa Tirtha Ara Puri Sukhananda E Nava Mula Nika Shila Vriksha Mule E Nava Mule Vriksha Karila Nischale. Translation and purport. Paramananda Puri, Keshava Bharati, Brahmananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati, Sri Vishnu Puri, Keshava Puri, Krishnananda Puri, Sri Nrsinga Tirtha and Sukhananda Puri. These 9 sannyasi roots all sprouted from the trunk of the tree. Thus the tree stood steadfastly on the strength of these 9 roots. The trunk is there, and then in poetic or literal thing, the roots sprung from the trunk. Because it's not an ordinary tree, it's a transcendental tree. Lord Chaitanya is the trunk, he's the branches, he's the gardener, he's everything. So this is the way his tree is manifesting. Based on these personalities. Purport. Paramananda Puri belonged to a Brahmin family of the Trihut district in Uttar Pradesh. Madhavendra Puri was his spiritual master. In relationship with Madhavendra Puri, Paramananda Puri was very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the Caitanya Bhagavat, Adi-lila, chapter 11, there is the following statement. Sanyasira Majji Ishwarya Priya Patra Ahara Nahi Eka Puri Goshani Se Matra Damodara Swarup Paramananda Puri Sanyasi Pur Pashade E Dui Adhikari Nevadi Nikate Takwen E Dui Jana Prabhura Sanyase Kare Dandere Grahana Puri Dhyana Para Damodara Kirtana Yata Priti Ishavere Puri Goshanire Damodara Swarupere Atata Priti Kare. A few more verses like that, but we'll just read the translation from now on. Among his sannyasi disciples, Ishvara Puri and Paramananda Puri were very dear to Madhavendra Puri. Thus Paramananda Puri, like Sarup Damodar, who was also a sannyasi, was very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and was his constant associate. When Lord Chaitanya accepted the renounced order, Paramananda Puri offered him the danda. Paramananda Puri was always engaged in meditation, and Sri Sarup was always engaged in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered full respect to his spiritual master, Ishvara Puri, he similarly respected Paramananda Puri and Sarup Damodar. It is described in the Caitanya Bhagavat, Adi-lila, chapter 3, that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first saw Paramananda Puri, he made the following statement. My eyes, my religious activities and my acceptance of the sannyas order have now all become perfect, because today Madhavendra Puri is manifest before me in the form of Paramananda Puri. Caitanya Bhagavat further states, thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exchanged respectful obeisances with Paramananda Puri, who was very dear to him. Paramananda Puri established a small monastery behind the western side of the Jagannath Temple, where he had a well dug to supply water. The water, however, was bitter, and therefore Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed to Lord Jagannath to allow Ganges water to come into the well to make it sweet. When Lord Jagannath granted the request, Lord Chaitanya told all the devotees from that day hence, the water of Paramananda Puri's well should be celebrated as Ganges water. For any devotee who would drink it or bathe in it would certainly get the same benefit as that derived from drinking or bathing in the waters of the Ganges. Such a person would certainly develop pure love of Godhead. It is stated in the Caitanya Bhagavat, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to say, I am living in this world only on account of the excellent behaviour of Sri Paramananda Puri. The Gora Ganodesha Dipika, verse 118 states, Puri Sri Paramanando Ya Asid Uddhava Pura. Paramananda Puri is none other than Uddhava. Uddhava was Lord Krishna's friend and uncle, and in the Caitanya Lila, the same Uddhava became the friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his uncle in terms of their relationship in the disciplic succession. So the purport goes on to describe three more of the sannyasis. I'm not going to touch on them today. Keshava Bharati, Brahmananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati. But Paramananda Puri and his identity in Krishna Lila as Uddhava has struck my imagination and my attention. And also the description of the tree. As I said, the roots are described here to have sprouted from the trunk. But another aspect of the verse previously, or somewhere there it says that the support of the tree, that the tree without strong roots will blow over in the wind. Without proper support, the tree is not sustainable. So these roots have been described, and the central root is Paramananda Puri. And Paramananda Puri, when it's revealed by Srila Prabhupada in this purport, is the manifestation of Uddhava from Krishna Lila in Caitanya Lila. So Uddhava is considered to be one of the most confidential servitors of Krishna. The most confidential. Krishna was always with him. Krishna made a few statements about Uddhava. One of them was that neither Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, or I myself am as dear to me as you are, Uddhava. Indicating that Uddhava was very, very dear to Lord Krishna. Here, Lord Chaitanya makes a similar statement. He says that I am living in this world only on account of the excellent behaviour of Sri Paramananda Puri. So Sri Paramananda Puri, a sannyasi, there's a bit of a description in this Chaitanya Bhagavatam quotation, that he was always engaged in meditating. In comparison with Swarup Damodar Goswami, who was always engaged in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So, meditating means thinking. So Paramananda Puri was always thinking about Krishna, thinking about Lord Chaitanya. And there are other descriptions in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that when Lord Chaitanya first saw Paramananda Puri, he became very excited and he glorified Paramananda Puri, as described here, because he was a very dear servitor of Madhavendra Puri, who was, and also a god brother of Ishvara Puri, and therefore Lord Chaitanya's uncle, his spiritual uncle, the god brother of his guru, Guru Bai. So there's a family relationship, very dear servitor and uncle, like that, very dear relationship like that. Then after they had exchanged embraces and calmed down, then they spent a long time discussing about Krishna. This is the association and the support that Lord Chaitanya manifested in the world for his tree, that there was very strong personalities who would take their association and he would discuss about Krishna. In Krishna's pastimes, Sri Uddhava, he was regarded by Krishna as one of his most confidential servitors, and he would always consult him. Krishna wouldn't do anything, he wouldn't make any decision, especially when he was in Dwarka, unless he consulted Uddhava. Uddhava is Paramananda Puri is from a Brahmin family. Uddhava, he was a disciple of Brihaspati, one of the sages from the demigods, and he was to be an advisor, to be a counselor like that. He was obviously in the mood of a Brahmana, but he was also able to associate in that assembly of the royalty. So he's probably a Raja Rishi. Raja Rishi. This is technicality about his ashram or his status. So one particular conversation or piece of advice that Krishna asked was, so we're at this stage, the kingdom is in need. What should we do to further the establishment of the kingdom? Some of my associates are suggesting that we should perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. But the younger members of the Yadu dynasty, they're saying, but we've got so many enemies, we have to deal with the enemies. How can we establish and proclaim that this Yadu dynasty is the topmost dynasty? There's people like Jarasandha, who has been challenging the existence of our kingdom. He's come 17 times So how are we going to pacify, or how are we going to subdue those rival kings? So Uddhava said, well, what we should do is both. It's not a matter of this or that, it's this and that. How to achieve both of those two functions, to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice and to quell the uprisings of the other rulers. And in fact, in order to do the Rajasuya sacrifice, then you're going around and you're getting tribute from all of the different members of the world. So they have to be to agree to that. So if they're antagonistic, then you're going to have to fight anyway. So you've already fought, Krishna, Uddhava is telling him, you've already fought with Jarasandha 17 times. And he just goes back and he amasses another army and you wipe them out again. So in order to defeat him soundly, conclusively, then my suggestion is, he's very, very powerful. He has the strength of 10,000 elephants, and he has this demoniac nature. The only person who can really defeat him is Bhima. He also has the strength of 10,000 elephants. So my suggestion, Uddhava said, is that you go there. Jarasandha, he has the nature that he gives in charity. He likes to be known as a charitable person. So if you go there, Bhima, in the guise of a beggar, in the guise of a brahmana, and beg charity from him, then he will fulfill that. So they thought, well, all of the other members, they heard the consultation with Uddhava and they thought, this sounds like a good idea. At that time, Arjuna, he spoke up and said, well, I'm going to go with Bhima because sometimes he's a little bit rash and he might make a mistake, so I'll go there to support him. And then Krishna said, okay, I'll come along as well. So the three of them disguised themselves as brahmanas, Krishna, Arjuna and Bhima, and they came into the kingdom of Jarasandha. Jarasandha was particularly, in those times people were Vedic. He was performing, he was looking after the members of his kingdom, but he had a demoniac tendency. He would take prisoners, and normally if you take a prisoner in a war situation, then the prisoner of war should be given proper situation, proper care, and after a certain time then they should be released. Uddhava, he was a counsellor, he was a messenger. Sometimes a messenger would go and deliver a message to the king. Lord Ram was approached by some messengers to deliver a challenge from Ravan. So Lord Ram's associates, they said, he's a spy, we should kill him. He's a rascal even though he's a messenger. But Ram came up and protected him. So no, the scriptural injunctions are that a messenger should be protected. So I'll give you protection, I won't, but you take my message back to Ravan and you're going to die. So he was able to deliver that message. So Jarasandha, he was not a good king because he would capture other kings, and he had 10,000 or more kings in his dungeon. And he not only was he incarcerating them, he was offering them in human sacrifice to to Kali Bhairava, or one of the demigoddess, as a human sacrifice to try and increase his powers. So he could become ultimately the topmost personality. So Krishna, he had already defeated him 17 times. Now this plan was conceived by, or presented by Uddhava, and they all agreed to it. And after Bhima and Jarasandha had been fighting for 27 days, and they were exhausted and they realized that it was an even match, then Bhima turned to Krishna, and Krishna, he got a twig. He got a twig and he showed Bhima, and he took the twig and he separated it where it was joining, so that Bhima then got the understanding that this was the way to kill Jarasandha, to split him in half, because Jarasandha, his history, he was born in two halves, and his mother decided, well, this is abominable, and she chucked the two halves into the forest of the baby. So then a witch called Jara she came and she was looking for some flesh. She liked to eat human flesh. She found these 2 parts and she thought, oh, here's dinner. But then she examined them and she thought, oh, they're 2 halves of the one. I'll stick them back together and see what happens. And then they were sunder. They were rejoined by Jara. So Jarasandha, his history was known. He was described like that. So Uddhava gave a properly balanced, well-considered solution to Krishna to then move forward with the Rajasuya sacrifice. Uddhava also, an evidence of his confidential relationship with Krishna, Krishna chose him to be the messenger to go and deliver his message to the gopis in Vrindavan. Krishna had left Vrindavan, he was in Mathura, and then he'd moved to Dwarka. So he kept on getting messages from the residents of Vrindavan. When are you going to come back? You promised you're going to come back. When are you going to come back? And he had told them that I've never left, I'm always here. But they were not satisfied with that. They wanted his personal presence. So Uddhava, who by his association with Krishna had adopted the same features as Krishna. He had the same bodily hue, and Krishna, he was wearing similar types of dress, and Krishna, he would give him his garlands, his paraphernalia. He also gave him his Kaustubha gem to wear. So when Uddhava arrived in Vrindavan, everybody at first were bewildered. Who is it? Is Krishna here? Is Krishna back? And then after a while they understood, no, it's Krishna's messenger. And Uddhava, he was able to observe the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. He was able to associate with them. He was able to accept them as his teachers. He learnt a lot about pure love for God from the residents of Vrindavan. And he very quickly, when he first got there, everybody was in despair. Everybody's on the verge of death. So he thought, well, I better deliver the message. And he was also such a good messenger. Messengers can deliver messages in a different way. They can, in a reluctant way, they can distort the message and they can pass it on. Or they can give just the superficial meaning of a message. They can tell what's on the surface. Or they can actually understand the message and be able to respond to the persons who are receiving the message. Uddhava, he decided to read the letter that Krishna had written, because he couldn't compare with that. But still he was delivering in such a fashion that they became pacified, and all the residents of Vrindavan, and they requested him, please stay with us for many, many months, and he would just be there placating their moods of separation. There's another understanding that Krishna, he didn't go back, even though he was within their hearts, and their mood of separation was more intense than Krishna actually being there. He didn't go back because he thought that if he did go back, they'd all depart. They'd all get so shocked. They would get so disturbed by his association again. So he sent his representative, and he fostered that mood, that understanding by thinking about Krishna, meditating upon them, working in so many ways to remember Krishna. Then they were actually very close to Krishna. And Uddhava, he stayed there, and then he came back and he explained to Krishna that he delivered the message, and everybody was satisfied. At the end of Krishna's pastimes, Uddhava was also with Krishna. And we also hear about Uddhava in the 11th canto, where the Uddhava Gita is spoken. Krishna, he repeats basically again the whole instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, but in a more elaborate fashion to Uddhava. Uddhava, he was described by Krishna, he is as good as me. Uddhava is as good as Krishna because he's not affected by the 3 modes of material nature. He's transcendental to the modes. So therefore he's as good as me. And I spoke about that Krishna, he regards even more than Lord Brahma, even more than Lord Shiva, even more than himself. Krishna's he loves Uddhava so much, and it's an indication that Krishna he loves his devotees He loves his devotees to an incredible degree. And we understand that if you want to please Krishna, if you please his devotees, if you serve the devotees, then that's a way to get to appeal to Krishna's heart. So Uddhava, he saw Krishna, and Krishna, he advised Uddhava, don't come to Prabhas Kshetra, because he's going to use that opportunity. Krishna had made an arrangement that all of his family members, which numbered around 10 million, I think that was just his personal family. Then there was other members of his family, the demigods, the different people from different origins. They were all in Krishna's association. So they came together, and they became intoxicated. They went to have a picnic. They became intoxicated, and the sticks that they started playing with were actually iron rods, as a result of a curse. So when they were fighting with each other in their drunken state, they killed each other. So Krishna took this as an opportunity to remove his family members, because they would become a burden on the earth. If you imagine, if you're related to the personality of Godhead, then you will start to make claims. Oh, he's my uncle. Then you would, to get respect in your own accord. So all of these members were removed from the earth. They were sent back to where they'd come from. Uddhava, he was advised, don't go there. I heard the same thing happened in the tower, the tower when that came down. In what's that called? New York, the Twin Towers. Yeah, certain people were advised, don't come to work on this day, and they kept clear. So Uddhava, he was advised, he didn't go there. Then afterwards he went, Krishna had deputed him, he'd given him a mission, that you should go to Badrik Ashram. Krishna had, and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he gives some insight. Why is Uddhava, who is not particularly absorbed in that mood, he was more inspired by the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. Why is he being deputed to go to Badrik Ashram? So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he describes that Krishna, when he was on the planet, he travelled and he visited many of his devotees, and he went to other places in different parts of the universe as well. He went to give his association to Mahavishnu, and the residents of Badrik Ashram he hadn't had the opportunity to go and give them his association. So he sent Uddhava. He sent Uddhava there as a messenger, and Uddhava Krishna first informed him about secret truths of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna, he's the source of the Vedas. I am the source of the Vedas, I am the knower of the Vedas, and by all the Vedas I am to be known. So the Vedas, the Bhagavatam, composed by Srila Vyasadeva, he spoke the seed slokas from the Bhagavatam. So Uddhava was informed by Krishna more essential understandings about those seed verses, and he went there to see the residents of Badrik Ashram, which is Nara, Narayan, Rishi, and different personalities up there, and he gave them his association. He was asked to stay behind. Everybody else had been dispatched back to their original homes, but Uddhava, he was asked to stay behind. And then because of his taste for the association of the devotees in Vrindavan, he also Uddhava desired that he could reside there eternally, even as a blade of grass or a bush. So Uddhava is still residing in the region of Vrindavan, and when the devotees, they travel through there, then their feet stir up some dust. So he gets a chance to get the dust of the feet of the devotees on his head. Same personality. Very confidential servitor of Krishna. When Lord Chaitanya saw him, he was happy to get his association. There's one little pastime here which is described that Paramananda Puri, when Lord Chaitanya was staying at Jagannath Puri, at Paramananda Puri, he set up a little ashram behind the temple, and he dug a well. He needed to establish a regular supply of water. In Mayapur, I think we dug 3 wells. We had a similar problem to Paramananda Puri. The water was not sweet, it was bitter. So we kept on shifting the well and going down deeper and trying to find a source of clear water. So Paramananda Puri, he described that the water was muddy and it was probably salty and bitter. In one version of the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it said that Lord Chaitanya, he proclaimed at that time, well, this water is purifying. Anybody who get in touch with this water, then they will get love of Godhead. So Lord Jagannath, he's disguising it. He's hiding the water. If you know there's somewhere you can drink water, but the water's not tasty, you'll say, oh, no, thank you. I'll get some other water. So then at that time, Lord Chaitanya, he prayed to Lord Jagannath. Lord Jagannath, please, this water is contaminated, is covered, is dirty. Please allow the Mother Ganges to come down into this well and manifest herself there so that the water will become sweet. And the devotees were all amazed, and they went home that night. And the next morning they came back to Paramananda Puri's well, and it was not muddy, it was not dirty, it was crystal clear, and it was sweet. So Lord Chaitanya again, he stated that now this is the Ganges water, this is Lord Jagannath's mercy. Anybody who drinks this water or who bathes in this water will derive the same benefit as bathing in the water of the Ganges. Such a person would certainly develop pure love of Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya then drank and then bathed in the water to establish that. So Paramananda Puri, as one of the roots, the central root of this tree of bhakti, was able to support Lord Chaitanya and the devotees to manifest facilities of pure water and purifying water, and help to develop the mission of Lord Chaitanya to spread love of Godhead all over the world. The other sannyasis, they have similar roles in different ways. The descriptions there are interesting. Actually, there's one thing I can say. I was speaking with Ramayaswami about Keshava Bharati Maharaj, that Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, and it appeared from a Mayavadi sannyasi. But in the purport, I'll just read that part. According to some, he belonged to the Bharati Sampradaya, Keshava Bharati. According to some authoritative opinions, although Keshava Bharati belonged to the Shankara Sampradaya, he was formally initiated by a Vaishnava. He is supposed to have been a Vaishnava on account of having been initiated by Madhavendra Puri. For some say he took sannyas from Madhavendra Puri. The temple and deity worship started by Keshava Bharati is still existing in the village known as Katundi. So other people say that he was, well, that's what's said about his initiation and his sannyas position, and then he established his temple, and there's more discussion about that. So these different personalities, they're part of Krishna's and Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. It's like in Srila Prabhupada's pastimes, he would often say about his disciples that they were just the disciples or the associates of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, coming along to assist him in establishing his mission. And then one of the examples as we go further on in the tree is that there's the trunk, and there's the main branches, and then there's the smaller branches, and then the twigs and the leaves. So all of the members of the Krishna consciousness community, they are considered to be like the twigs and the leaves and the branches, helping to establish and to expand the influence of this tree of love of Godhead, devotional service. So the foundation of the community is based on the roots. And the roots of this community, I was hearing the other day from some of the original members here, very interesting personalities. They came, they performed service. Some of them are still here performing service. Others have passed their legacy on in a different way. So now the residents of this ashram they're also part of establishing and spreading this tree of love of Godhead. And just like Uddhava was an advisor and a scholar and a greatly learned person, Paramananda Puri, he was very learned in the pastimes of Krishna and was able to discuss with Lord Chaitanya. So the residents of the ashram, they should become strong supports of the mood of this mission of spreading love of Godhead by becoming well educated in the precepts of Krishna consciousness, by associating, hearing about Krishna, discussing Krishna, and in that way developing a taste for always thinking of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, he wrote a book, he wrote different articles, and it was compiled by His Holiness Bhakti Charuswami into a book called Renunciation Through Wisdom. And one of the chapters in that book, from an essay, is entitled Pure Devotion Resides in Pristine Knowledge. Pure devotion resides in pristine knowledge. So the understanding that we can gain by applying our intelligence to the discussions about Krishna, the teachings of Krishna, then that's where we're going to find pure devotion. That's where we're going to find our purpose in life. That's where we're going to have the doubts that are holding us back removed by studying these teachings and these descriptions about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's my understanding of how those roots are there. The sannyasis, they spend time daily studying and chanting and dancing and preaching, and that's the main foundation for this movement. So Paramananda Puri, he suddenly appeared here, and his true identity as Uddhava has been revealed by this purport. And we're going to hear more in future classes from the Caitanya Caritamrita about how this tree develops and how Lord Chaitanya regards the tree and what his hopes for the tree are. So I'll just finish there. Does anybody have any questions or any comments? Still a little bit. Maybe I'll finish off the purport. I'll read the rest of the purport. So, the temple and deity worship started by Keshava Bharati are still existing in the village known as Kutundi, which is under the postal jurisdiction of Kandara in the district of Burdwan. These descriptions about where such and such a place is, you get on this train and you go to, and then you go on this line and you walk for a kilometre through the village. This is, as far as I understand, to establish how substantial these pastime places are. They're still existing, and you can find them. And you can find people who are descendants who are residing there. According to the managers of that mutt, the priests are descendants of Keshava Bharati, and some say that the worshippers of the deity are descendants of the sons of Keshava Bharati. In his household life he had two sons, Nisapati and Ushapati, and a Brahmana of the name Sri Nakadichandra Vidyaratna, who was a member of the family of Nishapati, was the priest in charge at the time that Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati visited this temple. According to some, the priests of the temple belonged to the family of Keshava Bharati's brother. Still another opinion is that they descend from Madhava Bharati, who was another disciple of Keshava Bharati. Madhava Bharati's disciple, Balabhadra, who also later became a sannyasi of the Bharati Sampradaya, had two sons in his family life named Madan and Gopal. Madan, whose family surname was Bharati, lived in the village of Oriya. And Gopal, whose family surname was Brahmachari, lived in the village of Denduda. There are still many living descendants of both families. In the Gauraganga Dipika, verse 52, it is said, Sandipani Muni, who formerly offered the sacred thread to Krishna and Balaram, later became Keshava Bharati. It is he who offered sannyas to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is another statement from the Gauragandadeshadipika, verse 117. According to some authoritative opinions, Keshava Bharati is an incarnation of Akrura. Keshava Bharati offered the sannyas order to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the year 1432 Shakabda, which corresponds with 1510 AD, in Katwa. This is stated in the Vaishnava Manjusha, part 2. Then Brahmananda Puri. Sri Brahmananda Puri was one of the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu while he was performing kirtan in Navadvip, and he also joined Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. We may note in this connection that the name Brahmananda is accepted not only by Mayavadi sannyasis, but Vaishnava sannyasis also. One of our foolish godbrothers criticised our sannyasi, Brahmananda Swami, saying that this was a Mayavadi name. The foolish man did not know that Brahmananda does not always refer to the impersonal. Parabrahman, the supreme Brahman, is Krishna. A devotee of Krishna can therefore also be called Brahmananda. This is evident from the fact that Brahmananda Puri was one of the chief sannyasi associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then lastly, Brahmananda Bharati went to see Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Dham. At that time he used to wear only a deer skin to cover himself, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indirectly indicated that he did not like this deer skin covering. Brahmananda Bharati therefore gave it up and accepted a loincloth of saffron colour as used by the Vaishnava sannyasis. For some time he lived with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri. So, Sri Chaitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai.